Hi folks, for Tassos today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the supposed population time bomb, the Armageddon, the apocalypse that Japan is allegedly facing, or at least that's what the globalist propagandists tell us. So I've just finished watching a couple of short sort of current affairs type level 10-minute type documentaries where they deliver in gushing prose how Japan's in deep shit, and they only interview people that insist that the end is nigh and so on. They just don't give any other point of view, just straight down that it's Japan's on the point of again Armageddon and the population time bomb that it's sometimes called. I don't see it. I mean, it's obviously heavily laced with I would say malevolent propaganda, because they just don't give any other point of view. They go down in one direction and very tightly cherry pick the stats to say, well, Japan's only solution is mass migration. They've got to take a lot of illiterate third world peasants. If they don't, they're going to die. They're going to disappear into the black hole, which is, of course, is total fucking bullshit. Now, I've been to Japan a number of times, and I used to have to go there on business. And so I got to see their factories and all sorts of how they do business, how they automate their production, and how they use robots in a lot of areas, and how AI is going to be used in the early stages or earlier stages now, how it's going to be used in the future. So they're going to have a sharp reduction in the need for workers. Now, they're still going to need people to do the plumbing or something like that, or the electricians. There's still going to be need for some of those trades, but outside of that, increasingly, that more and more of the jobs will be taken up by AI and robotization, and the robotics in particular are pretty impressive in Japan, and were some years ago. Even as a young man, I went to Japan, still in my 20s, and how old would I have been? 25 or something like that. So I went to Japan and was given a tour of supposedly one of the most advanced factories in technical terms and robotization terms in Japan, and I was in awe of it, the way it worked. Whoa, I'd never seen anything like that. And I'd seen American factories that were automated, but not to this extent. And so I came away hugely impressed. But I thought, what are the ramifications for jobs in the future? If this type of automation, and certainly on its scale, is around, then there's going to be fewer workers needed, but corresponding more robots. So when these first stories came out about the Japanese time bomb, I thought, well, I don't think there is a time bomb here. The application of technology, then it was the earlier sort of robots, but now it's AI, is going to completely, I would argue, revolutionize much of the work that we see, or the need for physical human workers that we see today and have understood the world hitherto. So I don't see the population decline in Japan as being a problem at all in any way. Now let's look at the propaganda. Now, in both the articles, in both cases, it was radical leftist Jewish journalists that were doing the thing, who are also prominent activists in pushing mass migration. And coming back again to the central thing, why is it so often, if not always, the case that the biggest pushers of mass migration are Jewish activists? Why is that? Not necessarily from Israel, but all across the West, everywhere. So in this case, in the two, I saw a British journalist and an American journalist, or activist. They weren't really journalists. And the Jewish view of the Jewish activist here is that if mass migration had been permitted in the 1930s, that the Holocaust could never have happened, because all the Jews could have left Germany and Europe and so on. So it never would have happened if there'd been mass migration. But because there was not mass migration, and because the Jewish migration to other countries, such as the United States, was heavily restricted to people with skills, and Einstein was okay to move around, heavily restricted, then it was that was really guilty of the Holocaust, not just Hitler and his goons. So, and that's very much in the wider sort of Jewish view of things, that was, and they see that in particular. And you know, say that the ship's just arriving in New York Harbor with Jews on there saying, "Yeah, we want asylum," and they're being turned away. This is something that the Jews see as well. They see that was the cause, or equal co-billing. That was the cause of the. So it's very much a Jewish. That's why you see so many Jews, I think, pushing mass migration, because they see if any restriction to mass migration means, you know, the next Holocaust is only around the corner. That would be their sort of, you know, where they frighten and terrify themselves with their own propaganda. So, nonetheless, the angle they take is laced with so many lies and misinformation that it's difficult to watch. So on one hand, they say, well, look at Japan's aging population. There are something between 25 and 30 million people today over the age of 70, is their claim. I don't know if that's true, actually. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But anyway, let's assume it's a large number of people. You know, more than 20 million, I would consider. So, so they're saying, look at all these people. How are we ever going to afford to take care of them, like in retirement villages and old persons' care homes and so on? How are we ever going to be to take care of them, given that the ratio of workers to retirees is going to be, you know, 2 workers for every 1 retiree? How is that economically sustainable? It just won't be possible. The only solution is that Japan brings in gazillions of third world illiterate peasants. Yeah, that'll fix it. That's the solution. Now, of course, that's utter and absolute nonsense. But let's dissect that. Now, they 50, which is only 25 years away. But by 2050, there's going to be allegedly, you know, only a certain number of people in the workforce, because Japan's overall population will shrink because all these old people are dying off. So say it's going to go from, I think today it's on or about 120 million, which is hardly an Armageddon type number. It's going to go from 120 million to say something like 90, give or take, something like 90 million. Now 90 million is still a lot of people. So the idea that 90 million is somehow just nothing is in itself absurd. But what they do is they double count. They say, well, look at all these old people. And so there's not going to be enough workers to support the old people. Then on the other side, you know, almost in the same breath, all those old people are going to be dead, and that's why the population will decrease. Well, hold on a minute. Why do you need to take care of dead people? They're already dead. Why do they need to be taken care of? So they do a double count here, a double shuffle with the counting. They assume the dead people will live forever, but due to birth rates, the number of workers coming into the economy is declining. No, you can't. The old people will die. So, given the majority, the biggest cohort of people in Japan is the senior citizens, and they die, which they will, then in that case, then the ratio of worker to old, you know, retiree, the ratio changes somewhat, and suddenly the numbers are manageable again. So they use this spectre of all these old people, you know, the baby boom generation. They use the spectre of all these old people that somehow magically live forever, which they don't. And then they say, well, the population's declining, isn't that terrible? Because all the old people are dying. Well, they can't live and be looked after forever and die at the same time. So let's just get that out of the way. Now, say a population of 90 million, for example, a population of 90 million in Japan, again, was hardly nothing. You know, Japan, it was like pre-war Japan had a population like 70 million. So, and they were doing very nicely, thank you then. So this idea that 90 million would be an Armageddon scenario is bullshit. Now, the globalists want to, rather than become more efficient, more capable, more innovative, have better organization, have better skills, the globalists see the solution to everything is monopolies, oligopolies, and population mass. And people are forced to buy everything they need from these oligopolies. That's the globalist sort of concept of how the future must and should be. The Japanese don't see it that same way. Now, if you look at the say people even in retirement homes, you know, the level of robotization that's being introduced to Japanese retirement homes is quite substantial, quite impressive too, by the way. So if you look at the majority, not all, but the majority of jobs in retirement homes and functions, a lot of it is just people coming around and making sure that the patients have a cup of tea or I don't know, a cookie or something to eat, that type of thing. Just going, so regular going around, making sure there's something to drink and something to eat and bringing the meals around, that sort of thing. Now, not every patient is capable of feeding themselves or performing their ablutions. There are robots that to some extent help with that. There's all sorts of robotization in the workplace, and again, AI coming in. So the number of workers that are going to be needed 25 years from now is much less than they're going to be need today or have been hitherto. So if the Japanese have a much more efficient economy where everybody who is working is doing productive, real productive work of whatever type it might be then, and that robots are doing the repetitive work and other work, but everyone's still employed, which certainly is something the Japanese have been quite successful at, then I would regard that as a very efficient economy. So the Japanese will move from a mass consumer economy and would move closer to a very efficient economy where everyone's productive. Not that they won't consume, they will, they'll still consume goods and services, but it won't be the mass consumption via monopoly channels that the globalists have wet dreams over. So I think going to a more efficient economy, the Japanese will go to, and they seem to be angling towards, certainly again, you look at their AI and robotization type policies, then it would appear to be heading in that direction. Then I would say that that's an efficient economy, that is a better, far better economy than the insanity we've got across the white Western world of bringing in gazillions of illiterate third world, angry, entitled peasants. If you haven't passed us today, your pushback channel, thank you for listening.